Former President Trump notching a partial legal win during a preliminary hearing for his trial on alleged interference with the 2020 election. A federal judge refusing to issue a blanket order that would restrict the former president from talking about new evidence. She is instead imposing a more limited order that bars publicly discussing material deemed sensitive by the government. Trump railing against the case earlier this week, saying it infringes on his First Amendment rights.
The case is a ridiculous case. It's a First Amendment case. But we don't want Trump to speak. So they take away your rights on First Amendment. Now they sue because, so now I have one of these lunatic reporters back there saying, sir, would like to talk to you about your case. Or I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to talk about it. Somehow that's not good for votes. Do you agree? When we say I can't talk, I will talk about it. I will. They're not taking away my First Amendment right.
Judge, to you on the First Amendment question, and the judge here siding mostly with the president, but I think it says a lot that the prosecution was trying to get him to essentially have a gag order.
Never underestimate the feds. They are notorious for this. Look, this is a trial about free speech. It's often running with a prohibition against free speech. And that's the irony of all of this. I understand that what the judge is doing. I do. And in the Article 8 of the protective order, paragraph 8, it basically says that there's certain information like personally identifying witnesses, their addresses. That makes sense. That needs to be prohibited. Rule 6 materials, grand jury testimony. I don't have a problem with that. But then what they do is order by the government's filter team. I'm not going to get in the weeds here, but they say that there are certain evidence that will be produced at trial is sensitive, and Donald Trump cannot talk about it. Well, wait a minute. You're going to produce this evidence at a public trial in front of a jury. Why can't he talk about it? What are you worried about? You worried about your case? You're worried about the public hearing the other side, maybe, and other than a courtroom setting? But the best part of it is where the judge is putting an obligation on the part of defense counsel to not allow Donald Trump to take notes from the information that he gets from the government. And counsel must inspect any other notes he takes to make sure that the defendant, a.k.a. Donald Trump, hasn't copied down personal information.
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, Lawrence, not underestimating the feds. They don't want not just Donald Trump talking. They also didn't want Twitter talking when they got into President Trump's Twitter account. They were saying, we're subpoenaing this information, and anybody at Twitter should not tell the target that this is happening, which seems to be problematic.
Yeah, they also thought that he was a flight risk as well, even though he has 24-hour Secret Service. I hope the court understands that Donald Trump is almost baiting them to arrest him. He wants to get locked up. He wants that to be the rallying cry for his supporters to say, look, they've been after me the entire time. I've been telling you this since day one, and by extension, they're after you. So he's baiting the court to see how far they want to go. He already thinks that it's a sham prosecution. Many of his supporters think the same thing. If you want to see Donald Trump reelected, throw him in jail. That will be his campaign rallying cry. So I just would encourage the court, since they decided to make this a political process and not a legal process, to be careful, because we already know she doesn't like Trump. Yeah. If you want to see him get reelected, hold him in contempt of court.
So, Jessica, how many T-shirts do you think the Trump campaign will sell of a Trump mugshot, should that happen at some point?
Well, he will be getting a mugshot in Atlanta. That will be the only one of his indictments. They said that he'll actually be photographed. Yes, I'm sure that the swag will be fierce. That's coming from all of this. But I don't think he wants to get put in jail. The man doesn't even like sleeping in a hotel, let alone in a jail cell. So I think that he is genuinely, and obviously, we're not pals. We don't chat about it. But I think that when you look at what he's facing with the 4 indictments, and putting aside the New York indictment, which I think is on a different kind of level than the other ones, there's real concern when you have this many counts that you're facing that you're going to get convicted of something. And I think that that's scary for anyone, let alone someone who has had a tremendously privileged and lovely life in terms of how they live, this idea that you're going to be going to prison. I think that it was a good thing that this judge mostly sided with the Trump counsel, just to put it out there that she's not in anyone's bag here, that she can read the order and say, this is going too far, but I do feel this way. She was very clear again that it's not about a First Amendment, that Donald Trump is not a normal citizen anymore. He's a defendant. And there are restrictions. He's out on
defendants still have
rights,
rights,
but he's out on bail. He can't do any witness tampering. And she did also say that the trial will be sped up if he goes out and talks about it, because the jury pool could be
What about that trial
contaminated.
date, Brian? January 2nd, 2024, which of course is right before the primary really starts
New Year's Eve.
getting ready.
Well, I just love it that the experts, like the judge says, in normal cases like this, takes 2 to 3 years to get ready, and he wants to get ready in 6 months. Why does Jack Smith care? Why do you care, Jack Smith? Why don't you just do a good job prosecuting and try to get justice? Are you concerned about the election? The judge says this: I cannot and will not factor into my decision the effect it will have on the campaign or either side. Okay, you're not going to factor it in, but Jack Smith's certainly going to factor it in. And do you really think that she's going to wait 2 to 3 years to let this happen? I'm going to amend what you said. I do think that he is daring them to put in jail, but I don't think there's any way he does. So Chris Christie, Will Hurd, Ron DeSantis can call out the president, who's competing with him for the nomination, and Joe Biden, if he chooses, call out the president specifically for what they feel he did wrong in these cases. And Trump's going to go, I wish I could come back. I just don't think I can come back at this. I don't want to get myself in trouble. 11.6 million pages of documents has been handed over, 2,300 boxes. What are the chances that Donald Trump is not going to say something that this judge is finds sensitive? If you want to divide this country like ever before, you take the leading nominee on the right and you throw him in jail leading up to a trial that someday somehow will start before the election. That will divide this country like something we haven't seen.
Doesn't it matter, though, if people are going to the polls, right, to elect the next free leader of the free world, that you know if it's somebody who committed crimes like a conspiracy to defraud the United States?
Y'all didn't care about that with the laptop?
Y'all
didn't care about
how
it then?
can having classified documents like our plans for attacking Iran and censoring a Hunter Biden story for 24 hours from the New York Post, how can you?
Well, it's not
the
just
bottom
Hunter,
line
because
is
it links
that
back to
we gotta
Joe
run.
as well.
We got to run. But the bottom line is that Donald Trump is allowed to talk about it, and he's not the kind of person who holds back. So I'm sure, Brian, we'll hear lots about the case from him directly.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.